Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is send. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we can use this verb. The first way you might hear the verb send used is to mean to cause to go or be taken to a particular destination. When I was in elementary school, it was sort of a fear that the teacher might send you to the principal's office, right? So this would cause someone to go where they would usually be disciplined or they receive some type of punishment. A second way to use the verb send is to mean to arrange for the delivery of something, especially by mail. It's December. Many people are sending holiday cards or sending greeting cards to friends and family this time of year. A third way to use the verb send is to cause a message or computer file to be transmitted electronically. This is something that you are likely doing on a frequent basis if you send a text message or you send emails. Send is an irregular verb. To make the progressive tense, we would add ing to form sending. The past tense and participle forms of this verb, though, have a different spelling. It's sent, and it's pronounced sent. Now, let's take a look at some phrasal verbs with send. I'm going to group two together because their meaning is essentially the same. So you might hear someone use the phrasal verb to send away for, or you might hear send off for, but both of these essentially mean that someone is asking to receive something by mail. I have two example sentences that are going to be structured very similarly, and they'll have the same meaning. Here's the first. Did you send away for a free sample? Did you send off for a free sample? Both of these are asking, did you ask to receive this free sample by mail? Another phrasal verb you might hear is to send back. This means to return something. Here's an example. I sent the shirt back because it was too small. Another phrasal verb is send in. This means to order people into a place to handle a particular problem. Here's an example of how this phrasal verb could be used. The police were sent in to stop the fight. There is another way to use the phrasal verb send in, and that's to submit information by mail. Here's an example of this usage. Send in the entry form by December 31st. Maybe there's some sort of contest or competition, and they're encouraging this information to be sent via the mail. The last phrasal verb we're going to look at today is send out. This meaning is to mail something to many different people or places. Here's an example of this usage. Did you send out Christmas cards this year? Today, we're going to practice making WH questions in the present progressive tense. Now, if you've had me in class, you've probably heard me call these more information questions. And I do that to distinguish or note there's a difference between a yes or no question, where you can answer it yes or no, and these questions which you cannot answer in a logical way with yes or no. So if someone asks you a question that begins with when, they're expecting to hear a time or a date. And if you just say yes to it, they'll be a little confused. But first, let's take a look at how we build questions in the present progressive. And then we'll focus on some more examples with our verb of the day. So for a WH question in the present progressive or present continuous, we're going to start with our question word. You can see a few examples here. When, where, why, what. Then you'll see we're going to use a form of be, in the present tense. That's am, is, and are. And those are going to line up or match with our subjects. After the subject comes the verb with the ing form. There may be more information that comes after a question. It just kind of depends on what is being discussed. So we can build several different questions. I've added a few recent verbs of the day here for us to look at, but we could start with, when is he building a new house? We could jump down to our question word what and ask, what are you studying? Could ask, why is she driving? Okay? And again, we can kind of play around with all of these things, but my hope is this chart helps you kind of see how we build each of these. So now let's make some present progressive questions with our verb of the day, send. If you want to ask a question about location, you want to use the question word where. So my example sentence here is, where is he sending the files? If I want to ask a question about time, and again, this could be something like 11 a.m., 6 p.m., a particular day of the week, a particular date or year, any combination of those things, we could use the question word when. Here's another example. When are they sending the payment? If I want to ask a question about the manner, how something is done, that's the question word I'm going to use, how. How are we sending the package? If we want to ask somebody for a reason, why are they doing this particular activity? That's our question word, why. Why is she sending that message to the whole team? Our last type of question here is with determiners. So generally we're asking for the object, the thing that is receiving the action in the sentence. So perhaps I've had a meeting and we're kind of going over things we need to do, and I might say, oh, what am I sending you? I can't remember. My notes are a mess. But with all of these, I hope you're noticing the pattern of we have our question word, then a form of be that matches our subject, and then we've got that ing form of the verb. The last two example questions break our pattern just a little bit. So another way to ask a question about the object of an action is to use the question word which. When we use which, though, what comes after it is usually a choice or choices. Right? So it might help if we look at the example sentence I have here. Which file is she sending? So here I need someone to make a determination between two files to help me answer this question. But after we add that little additional information, our pattern goes back. So we have which file, then be, then our subject, then that ing form of the verb. The last type of question is asking about the person who is responsible for doing an action. And again, this breaks our pattern a little bit because who is the subject? We're asking about that. So who is sending the gift back? Okay. We don't have another stated subject because the answer is going to be our subject. Finally, let's take a look at some words and phrases that are related to our verb send. And the first one we're going to look at is the noun sender. This is just a person who sends or transmits a message, a letter, an email, etc. Here's an example. The letters were from an unknown sender. So we don't know who the person is that sent or transmitted the message. We're going to look at two phrases next. The first is send word. This is a phrase that just means someone is communicating a message. Here's an example of it used in a sentence. He sent word that he would be late. I doubt this is something you're going to hear a great deal, but it might be something you read in older literature. I think it was a more popular phrase 50 or more years ago. The last phrase we're going to look at is to send packing. And this means that someone is being made to go away. Sometimes this could mean firing someone or maybe even eliminating a team or an athlete from competition. Here's an example of this usage. The head coach was sent packing after the team lost its last 10 games. So this particular sentence is referring to firing. A head coach lost his or her job in this case after the team was performing really badly. The last word I'm going to point out to you is a homophone. So a word that sounds like one of the words we've discussed earlier. I mentioned the past tense form of send is sent, S-E-N-T. But there's another word in English that has the exact same pronunciation, but it has a different spelling and a different meaning. So S-C-E-N-T is also pronounced scent, but this is a distinctive smell, especially one that is pleasant. So sometimes this can be confusing. You might have heard the word odor, right? This is generally an awful smell. But scent is usually, again, has this positive meaning to it. It's an enjoyable smell versus an odor, which is usually makes someone feel kind of sick. So here's an example of this noun in a sentence. The flowers had a beautiful scent. So if you're doing some writing, it's good to pay attention and be aware. Make sure you're using the right scent. Whether you're describing an action or a smell. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.